Welcome to Inspiring Women with Laurie McGraw. I am your host, Laurie McGraw. I have spent the past 30 years in leadership, and over the years, I've come to learn one thing. Women need women, and not just any women, but inspiring women. Tune in every week to hear from women at the pinnacle of their careers and from others who are just starting out. Episodes can be found at inspiringwomen.show or subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Thanks for listening, and I hope you will be inspired. This is Inspiring Women, and I am Laurie McGraw. Today, I'm speaking with Sara Vaezy. Now, Sara is the Executive Vice President and Chief Strategy and Digital Officer for Providence. That is a significantly large health system, which, serves the needs of over 5 million unique patients. Sara has been on a strong and steady and fast rise to prominence in this space of digital health. She's no stranger there. She's very active in the broader healthcare industry. She's on the board of directors for NCOA. She's first Cressy Ventures Collective inaugural class graduate. She also is a board observer for DexCare and a Forbes Business Council member. Sara is well recognized, transforming future of healthcare, the 30 under 40. She is tomorrow's leader, a Becker's Rising Star, a Women to Watch, a Becker's Women to Watch for a couple different years. Sara, thank you so much for being on Inspiring Women.
Thank you so much, Laurie. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
All right, let's get started. This is going to be a fun conversation. I want to talk about digital health, and certainly you are an expert in this space and sort of setting the course for all of us as we learn and adopt. And there has been so much talk about there, but also just as a young executive who has been rising through the ranks so swiftly. I just think that, how that has happened for you and how you think about it is going to be really helpful to listeners. We always start Inspiring Women with what are you doing right now? So as the chief, the executive, what does your day-to-day look like, Sara?
Well, this has been a really interesting and challenging several years, but especially 2022 has been a challenging year for our health system. So we have spent a lot of time focused on how we are going to transform our system, recover and renew through this really difficult time that we've had in the last year. So thinking very differently. I spent a lot of time actually really getting deep on the both internal and macro kind of external problems that exist and all the challenges that exist in healthcare, and then charting a path for very specifically how are we going to do something that is not the way that health systems have always done things in the past and have resulted in kind of where we're at today. So transformational strategies around how we're going to respond to disruptors, both like big tech and big retail or big customer, whatever you want to call it. A lot of work around leveraging digital, of course, to drive growth for the system, support patient acquisition, retention, and LTV capture. So just a lot of, I would say, work that is not typical in terms of how health systems have done things in the past. And it's done through, a lot of these types of conversations to help shape the industry, as well as a lot of, thoughtful analysis and work with our own system to get folks moving in that direction.
Yeah, and I think strategy today, I don't know if the old playbooks or playbooks of old still work during these particular unprecedented and disruptive times. I was just at a healthcare collaborative with leaders across associations in the area of Chicago. And, one comment that resonated was just that, healthcare has always been disruptive, but it does seem that this is quite extraordinary, with the pandemic to bolster and accelerate digital health. But before we even sort of dive a bit more into that, Sara, just the career bio sketch, sort of how did you get here? I mean, you have degrees in physics and philosophy. You went on to get your master's in public health. You've done health policy, and now you're leading this large health system. Sort of how did that all happen in such a short period of time?
So, as you noted, I've been in healthcare or adjacent to healthcare for my entire career. I have just a lot of like passion for healthcare and to, do the right thing in the space. I believe that healthcare is a human right, and that we need to build a system that actually values it in such a way. So, I've been doing that for my entire career. It may be kind of a funny thing to say, given that folks like to be planners in terms of their careers. I never planned it this way, and frankly, I got pretty lucky. I found my way to Providence somewhat serendipitously when I was actually at my old firm, where I was doing a lot of strategic planning and strategy work for large integrated delivery networks, and happened to come across Providence as a prototypical example of a system doing some really interesting things in innovation, and happened to get hooked up with the former chief digital officer, who ended up being, really my mentor and my sponsor in terms of supporting me in my career and the path that I had at Providence. He gave me a lot of responsibility and access to high profile projects, a lot of exposure, and to our, senior executives, our CEO, and others across the organization, and just, kind of gave me that, put me in positions where I had to be closer to the forefront of risk associated with being a senior leader. And that just really accelerated things for me. I was so fortunate to have that experience, and it wasn't something that I could have planned for, but it just really spoke to the power of not just having a mentor, but a sponsor that really actively promoted my career and the things I needed to do to advance. So that was one, coming to Providence was a big inflection point.
Well, Sara, when I speak to so many successful, accomplished women, and oftentimes they do point to that fortunate, lucky break. And, what my observation is generally that it's not so much luck, it's how you respond to the opportunity. So did you, when you had that opportunity to sort of be close to executive risk-taking decision-making, did you recognize it as an opportunity or just go with the flow? How did that, like, what happened in that moment?
Oh yes, so I did recognize it partly because again, I was so fortunate when I started the job that it was actually positioned that way. My former boss, who hired me into this position, had come from Amazon, and at Amazon they had a concept called the technical advisor.
Mm-hmm.
And for folks who may not know, the technical advisor is like a chief of staff, but they have, a very close connection to the person whom they're supporting. And for instance, Andy Jassy, who is the current CEO of Amazon, was Jeff Bezos' initial technical advisor. So it really is like a formal role that they have there, supporting the career of folks that they believe are high potentials. And that was how I was brought on. And so it was positioned to me that way. And I got some really great advice from somebody I had worked with at my old firm, who had said, don't wait, don't get complacent, don't let yourself just settle in for a long period of time, just jump in with both feet. And I did. And it really did provide me with that, like, the opportunity to really grab onto.
Well, I see that type of sort of drive and, I'll just call it hustle, in so many people. I personally just get pretty annoyed with the discussion about quiet quitting and the like, because I'm just not seeing it in people who are pursuing. So it's great to hear that opportunity, you did recognize it and how you went after it. Maybe we could talk a bit about your role, Chief Strategy and Digital Officer. I checked the top health systems across the country. I didn't see many people with a title like this in the executive suite. So what does that job entail? And should every health system of scale have one of these positions?
Well, so what the job entails, what I have responsibility for is our corporate strategy, and I work very closely with our more sort of geographically oriented, market-based folks on their strategies, but they have principal responsibility for them. So I work at the corporate level, really thinking about the overall direction of the organization, working on portfolio management alongside our finance group and our CFO, and the other leaders across the organization, and thinking about again, like the future composition of the organization and the big inflection points as an enterprise that we're going to have to take, and in order to kind of continue to sustain our mission for the next 170 years. I also, in my digital role, have responsibility for the sort of the business end of things, and then in really the consumer facing front end. And what I mean by that is, how we think about customer acquisition, retention, and LTV capture through digital. And so I own, or I have oversight over marketing, our digital experience team, which is everything from like our digital properties and websites, app, things like that, our search and e-commerce activities. And then we also have a product incubator that builds technology where we identify an opportunity in the market, and then we build new companies, often enterprise SaaS companies that we spin out of Providence and take to market. And we do that because there is an unmet need in the market that we think, given our sort of unique sandbox, and the people that we've recruited within Providence who are sort of bringing together healthcare and technology, that we can do those things sort of in a differentiated way as with respect to development, as opposed to like if we were on the outside. So those are the types of things that we're working on. I'm responsible for every day. And I think with respect to whether other health systems should have that role, I definitely think it's more and more important for health systems to have that that person that's looking out to say, like, how we've delivered business in the past isn't necessarily going to fuel the resource engine of the future, and how do we need to transform that? So I do think that's essential. And then digital, I actually think it's almost a transitional kind of role, because we are not a digitally native industry, but at some point, we won't be talking about things in digital versus physical. It's all going to be kind of more cohesive, and the lines will be blurred in many cases. So it'll just be sort of the way that things are done. But I think for now, it is important for folks to sort of fully embrace that digital is important, and having a leader that's at a senior enough level to influence that is important as well.
Well, today it all seems so obvious in terms of the need and the requirements, but I think pre-pandemic, it probably was less so. I mean, we've been working on telehealth and virtual care, knowing it is something that's needed, but it took the pandemic to get to the level of adoption. And Sara, that I grew up in the world of EHRs, which were, important until there was the HITECH Act that really facilitated the adoption. And so from a level of a health system, I'm just making the huge assumption, not a big leap, that it was a busy time during the pandemic, but did you feel more prepared than your counterparts? And then certainly the large moves that are happening in healthcare. You mentioned retail competition. We know CVS and Amazon are making big moves in this space. Do you feel prepared for this, or is it all a work in progress?
It's definitely a work in progress, though we were, at the beginning of the pandemic, we were very fortunate that we had a platform in place that we had actually developed ourselves, and then subsequently turned into the company DexCare that we spun out. But DexCare enabled us to, for instance, scale on-demand virtual care orders of magnitude, almost near like overnight, because we had to shut down facilities. We were and we had there was so much uncertainty and fear about COVID and the symptoms and whether you should or shouldn't be seen. And so virtual care became so important, on-demand care became so important. We launched a chat bot that we had a sort of the technology chassis in place for, but it took off during the beginning of the pandemic as well. And now we're hearing, or we're essentially getting millions of utterances and conversations with our conversations with our consumers, monthly. And so it's really taken off. And to your point, Laurie, it's really been material as it relates to just driving adoption and getting folks to be familiar with the available technologies at their disposal. So that said, there's still a really long way to go. There was this period of a lot of engagement with digital tools, and now it's been tapered off. And part of that is because of experience. Part of that is because of the regulatory environment. Part of that is because of how we pay for things. And so we still have a long road ahead of us. And many of the challenges are not simply technology oriented. They're actually people, process, payment types of things that we still need to work through.
I've also heard you, Sara, talk about, as we wade through all of this, whether it's enormous amounts of investment in digital health and all kinds of new solutions that are out there, you are a savvy leader in this space. And you've talked about just appropriation, sort of, every different, many different solutions, sort of taking credit for whether it's, dollar improvements or patient engagement types of improvement. So I guess, just based on your lay of the land, what are you most excited about? What are you most skeptical of today?
I think there are going to be two sides of the same coin. It's the whole, how are we generating value with digital? I'm both skeptical and excited about it. I think the whole industry is becoming a little bit more, maybe sophisticated is the right way to describe it, just around how we think about value. It's not just about everyone taking credit for the same thing, like reduced readmissions or elimination of ED bounce back or reduction of ED bounce back or whatever. Like it's much more sophisticated in terms of, what actual value can be attributed to a specific solution. And so I'm really excited about that. I'm skeptical about what we've seen in the past. And frankly, most solutions don't have much to show for what they've done for a number of different reasons. But I'm really looking forward to that because, most industries in the past that have made a digital transformation, when they've layered on technology that has actually reduced their costs, and in healthcare, car costs keep going up, partly because of this value attribution problem, partly because we just deploy disconnected point solutions, partly because we don't pay for things the right way, and we don't really have sort of rational economics associated with care. And so, and frankly, we have a massive economic kind of distribution problem in terms of how value and profits and everything are distributed across the different sectors in healthcare. And so I'm excited about, as we get technology in place that allows us to be more sophisticated around value attribution, for some of the rationality to come into play, and for us to really work on solutions that are meaningfully improving the patient experience and driving affordability.
Well, it's great to hear your enthusiasm. I mean, it could just be exhaustion, from the past 2 years. I have to, just imagine it's been like nonstop since the pandemic and ever since, with the new sort of entrance here. I want to turn the conversation, Sara, quickly to a bit more about you. I mentioned, that you have this side hustle that I've learned about, this craft sauce called Yeah Boy. I bought some. I'm looking forward to trying it out. And I just find it kind of remarkable that somebody as accomplished like you has a side hustle. So tell us a little bit about Yeah Boy.
Awesome. Well, Yeah Boy is our small family-run hot sauce company. It kind of emerged out of a family vacation that we took. We tried some food, habanero hot sauce that we really enjoyed in the Yucatan and couldn't find it anywhere else. And then tried to recreate it, tried to find a recipe, tried to buy it, tried all sorts of things and couldn't, and ultimately just ended up making our own, and we love it. We put it on everything, and then we said, hey, if we love it this much, maybe other people will love it. So it kind of took on this like organic thing, and it's always such a nice thing to do, to explore different aspects of life and your own, like get different parts of your brain working. I worked at a farmer's market for 2 years and just really enjoyed getting to meet, for instance, like the maker community, and it's just a lot of fun. And it sustains other parts of you, just your whole person, your whole being, just to cook and to enjoy something and to run your own business. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, I just applaud it. I mean, people are looking for things to keep them fresh and keep their brains and just connections with other people occupied. And that you have this as an outlet, again, with the level of executive responsibilities that you have, is just, it's impressive. It's and inspiring. Okay, last couple of questions here, Sara. I wanted to introduce a new section here to Inspiring Women. I have some oddball questions, perhaps, from listeners who have asked me to start asking guests these things. So here we go. Quick questions. When you work from home, what do you wear for pants? Or do you wear pants? Or do you wear pajamas?
I always wear sweatpants.
Sweatpants. Okay. When you got your first promotion, did you ask for it? And if so, how did that go?
I did ask for it. I'll use the Providence example. I went and I identified, sort of through that technical advisor role, I identified a gap in the organization and a need that we had. I wrote up what I thought the need was and how it could be filled, and kind of built up, mapped out like a plan to get into the role, and sat down with my my boss at the time and walked through it, and we agreed and we made it happen. So I definitely asked for it.
Awesome. And then what about mentors? You've mentioned an early mentor that was helpful to you. Do you actively seek out mentors even today?
Yeah, and I think I do. And I seek out mentors, and I seek out folks for different bodies of experience that they've had and things that they can bring forward to at different times, depending on what the kind of might be the need in the moment. I'll give one example of, I actually have only talked with her a couple times, but the very first time, she's a very insightful person. And the very first time we talked, she said, never be afraid of getting fired. And that's been some of the most amazing mentoring advice that I've had, because when you're not afraid of being fired, you never worry about whether never worry about like how you're going to be perceived, whether you don't have to do a deep analysis of like, is this the right thing or not? You just do the right thing, and you speak your mind, and you do so in a way that's like consistent with your values and your ethics, and moving things forward in the right way. And so that just made me a lot bolder and more comfortable being myself. And again, that was just like a, very like somebody I'd only talked with once or twice. So I think you can seek out mentors for all sorts of different things and talk with them as little or as much as, makes sense for you.
Last one, 3 to 5 years from now, if you're not doing the job you're doing today, what job do you want?
If I'm not doing the job I'm doing today, I think I've kind of thought about two potential paths. One is I work with a lot of entrepreneurs and founders of companies, and I think they're an incredible, just kind of general group of people putting their faith in solving a problem with, everything they've got. And I would love to be an entrepreneur someday as well, around some issues that I'm really passionate about. And then the second option is working more in like public service. So kind of going back to my policy and roots to some extent.
Okay, so we're going to be Madam CEO or Madam Secretary, one or the other I see on the horizon. Awesome. Sara, this has been such a great conversation. As we close out here on Inspiring Women, I'd love your last advice for younger listeners as they're starting out in their career journeys.
Fear is natural, and just as my old boss would say, put that head trash aside and go for it, and grab the opportunities if they feel right to you and they're consistent with your values and what you want to do.
Well, I think you've done a great job putting head trash aside. This has been an excellent Inspiring Women conversation. I've been speaking with Sara Vaezy, and Sara, thank you so much.
Thank you, Laurie.
This has been an episode of Inspiring Women with Laurie McGraw. Please subscribe, rate, and review. We are produced by Kate Cruz at Executive Podcast Solutions. More episodes can be found on inspiringwomen.show. I am Laurie McGraw, and thank you for listening.